Hey everyone, welcome to the CyberHub Engage podcast, our CISO Talk Saturday special. And this week we've put together a mashup of some of my favorite episodes with Mark Houpt and Patrick Benoit, where we will be doing a live podcast together this Tuesday evening, February 4th in Plano, Texas, thanks to our host, Armor, at their facility. So today's listen is going to be all about our conversations around cybersecurity with both Patrick and Mark. I'm sure you guys are going to love it. It's a bit of a highlight into what we're going to be talking about this week and some of the content you can see coming out post our live podcast and some of the stuff we're going to be doing in Dallas, including our CISO roundtable, which is exclusive for practitioners and CISO. So if you're in the Dallas-Fort Worth area and you'd like to join us Wednesday evening for our CISO roundtable, you can do so now by going to our website at cyberhubengage.com. Enjoy today's episode. It's a first for us where we're doing a mashup of some of our best work. But before we get to that, just a quick message from some of our supporters and sponsors of this podcast who do so much to help us and continue to finance our operation in order to bring you the content that you've become accustomed to and love. We'll be right back after this message with Mark Houpt, Patrick Benoit in a mashup Saturday special, our first ever here on the CyberHub Engage CISO Talk. All right, friends, let's talk about one of our podcast supporters, PlexTrack. When it comes to security assessments, I think we can all agree on one thing: reporting sucks. I know I hate writing reports, which is why I pawn it off to my staff, but not all of you could do that. Red teams hate that there's no platform that gives them what they need to efficiently and consistently deliver their best reports. Blue teams and CISOs and VPs hate copying and pasting findings from all these multiple sources, all these different Excels, into some sort of ticketing system that then generates some sort of analytics reports that's really jimmy-rigged. And so PlexTrack, our sponsors and friends, have finally solved the pain of security assessment reporting for the red and blue teams all in one. For red teams, PlexTrack's custom templating and write-up repository ensures consistency across reports. Reports can be delivered in the browser or exported to a custom Word and PDF document if you still live in that world. For blue team, PlexTrack aggregates security issues into dynamic reports that enables remediation collaboration. Further analytics visually tell the story of the security posture to the C-suite, helping give a complete and final picture for everyone. As a loyal CyberHub Engage listener, you have a special offer of a free 30-day, no contracts, no credit cards, no risks trial of their amazing platform. So go to plextrack.com/CyberHub. Again, that's PlexTrack, PLEXTRACS for Charlie, /CyberHub to get your free month of trial on their platform. I will tell you this, I've seen it, I love it. People who have tried this platform have given us rave reviews on it. It really does simplify the red team, blue team communication and helps us all be far more organized in reporting our vulnerabilities. So again, go to plextrack.com/CyberHub for a free 30-day trial. Hey everyone, I really want you to help me in supporting our early sponsor, Get Smarteye. So Get Smarteye is still in beta testing, but what Get Smarteye is, it's an amazing app that lets you control your privacy, whether it be documents, pictures, anything that you want to share with your friends or not. Think of Snapchat, only no screenshots and no one else looking over it. So if you travel a lot, if you're in airports, coffee shops, shared workspaces, and you care about your privacy, Get Smarteye is the right app for you to protect your privacy. And here's the deal. Get Smarteye is still in beta testing. I use the app all the time. In fact, some of you know that I travel a lot, and when I do, I don't like people looking at my screen at airports. I do everything off my phone, and as such, I use Get Smarteye for all my sensitive documents and all my planning. So here's what you need to do to be one of our early technology adapters, an exclusive offer for CyberHub Engage listeners. Text 41411, again, that's 41411, 41411, and type in the message of your text, Smarteye. Then reply to the SMS that you're going to get with the letter Y, like Yankee, and download the Apple Test Flight app. Then go back to your SMS and you'll get a link to download the Smarteye app. Download the Smarteye app and use it. Again, this is an early offer for only CyberHub Engage users. Text 41411. Again, that's 41411 with Smarteye in the message. Hey everyone, want to talk to you about our newest sponsor, a company I've known for a few years now. Been a follower of them and appreciate their work, Unbound Technologies. They're finally on board with us here at CyberHub Engage. So let me tell you a little bit about what they do. If you don't have a secure cryptographic foundation, chances are you're struggling to understand the status and security of your cryptographic keys. Unbound's key security and management experts can help with that. Their FIPS validated cryptographic key security and management platform allows you to maintain visibility of all your keys, whether on-prem or in the cloud, without compromising on security. Know exactly where your keys are and how they're being used. Manage them all with a single pane of glass. Automate operations in your organizations. Save time and manpower as well as money. With Unbound, your enterprise can achieve agility, efficiency, gain control, and reduce risk. Today, Unbound is giving all of you an amazing white paper to look at where you can manage your enterprise key management. I've actually read this white paper. It's great. It's helped me a ton with managing my enterprise key management program. You can go to bit.ly/get-unbound. Again, bit.ly/get-unbound. You'll see the description on our website, on this episode description, and everywhere else. Click that link, go download that white paper, bit.ly/get-unbound. And we're back from commercial break here. I guess commercial break in podcasting. I don't know what else to call it. So we're back from the message from our sponsors. And like I said, today's episode is all about the MeshUp between Mark and Patrick and our live podcast in Dallas. And we're starting the road to RSA. So Micah and I will be full-fledged in RSA. We can't wait to see you guys there. If you're going to be at RSA, please engage with us now. Let us know you're going to be there. We love to talk to security practitioners. So if you're at RSA, we'd love to get 15 to 20 minutes of your time and have you on the podcast. Something that you can share that can become a focal point of your career when you're trying to get that better job or trying to get your ideas out there. But before we kind of get started into today's episode, here's a few things to look at. I want to start off with Mark Houpt. And our first part of our conversation in one of our latest podcasts, the one that we did when we hosted our Atlanta Roundtable, was around ransomware and the evolution of phishing. And it's so relevant, especially with the news this week of how the Imitat crew is using the coronavirus as a way to get people to fall for phishing scams. We have an epidemic that is causing a serious health concerns where literally China has been shut out of the global marketplace completely. No airlines are willing to fly to China. No one can leave China. No one can go into China. Well, people can go into China. They just can't get out. And so this episode's extremely great. These next about 12, 13 minutes where we talk about the evolution of phishing and how it's gotten and how ransomware is developing is going to be a great kickoff to this podcast. And after that, we've got a few more skits to talk about. So let's kick it in with Mark Houpt and myself talking about ransomware.
Which is a great segue into
fourth quarter.
Cybersecurity fourth quarter, right?
Yes, it is.
We all salivate over what's going to happen in the next couple months. You know, all the phishing attacks, the things that are going to keep us up all night. Yeah, they're going to keep us up all night instead of allowing us to eat those donuts. Either that or the donuts keep us up to help get through the things we have to deal with.
I'm going to go with the latter.
Yeah,
donuts
probably
keep us up to deal with what we're going to be dealing with.
That's right.
But phishing has gone so good. I'm scared of the phishing that's going to happen around Christmas.
It has gotten incredibly sophisticated, even to the point, you know, I'm using some of the more sophisticated anti-phishing capabilities that are out there, minus the government type of stuff, right? And I've seen phishing attacks still come through that even people that are trained on finding the phishing are going, ooh, that one's good. You know, I've seen, it's not just the typical, hey, let's slap somebody's logo on there and take you to the wrong link anymore. we're talking about stuff that will be redirected, and be one letter off or one little thing off from the real link, or there's just so many things out there that people are getting really sophisticated with the phishing, and it just begs the question of, is it really that effective? And apparently it is. That the phishing is still the thing. They're still after it. And
well, it's effective because people click.
Right. People click. It's now leading to the ransomware attacks that we've seen throughout the year, which are it just boggles my mind that those are even continuing to rise with all the awareness that's out there about it. But people click, and that's the bottom line. Click to connect, right?
Are we not dealing? I mean, when we always talk about security and we talk as a whole about security, I think our challenge a lot of times is our users are very, very diverse.
Right.
One of the challenges I feel like security professionals constantly have is we think from a security perspective, while our direct reports and our subordinates in the different business units consider security to be something non-existent. It's afterthought.
I don't know if I'd agree with non-existent.
Afterthought.
I think that afterthought might be accurate. I think that there's starting to get that sense that security is too technical sometimes, and it's because people like myself and security engineers, when we don't take our message to meet the masses, they tune us out.
Right.
Like, how many times do you flip on a radio station that's a talk radio, for example? I listen to a lot of talk radio. So you flip that on, and they start talking about and droning on about the same subject over and over again. You're just sick and tired of it. You turn it off. You change to a different station. Well, that's what our users are doing. Even though we're sending out the security awareness messages, they're going, oh, here comes the email from the CISO again saying you must do this. And if you don't, there's penalties and so on and so forth. We have to, as CISOs, we have to think about it from a common sense perspective and kind of come at it from even some talking to our marketing teams and really start thinking about how the marketing teams operate in order to effectively get our message out there. Because if our message isn't being heard, just on something as simple as phishing, and they're tuning us out, they're going to click. They're going to cause more insider problems than we want to deal with. So when we have problems like ransomware, I look at the situations that we saw in Texas this year with ransomware, in Baltimore, in Florida, here in Atlanta in the past couple of years with ransomware. We see on the media how that impacted those organizations. What we don't do is we don't take the deep dive to go back and find out how it happened. We only see what happened. And I think if we go back and we look at what happened and really are honest with ourselves and get to the root of it, we would find out that, yes, there was a security awareness campaign in place, but all it was a checkbox. And it was nothing more than, hey, the auditors are coming. Let's make sure that the security awareness is in place. And I'll be the first one to raise my hand and say, I've been guilty of that too. We don't want to have to jam it down somebody's throat, something that's ineffective. We want to make it entertaining. We want to make it interesting. We want to make it something that people are not feeling like it's being shoved down our throat with a plunger.
So I feel like one of the challenges that we have as CISOs is typically, like you said, is getting them to really care about, getting them to be passionate about the message.
Right.
I've found, at least my personal success has been in two business things, one personal thing.
Right.
Talk about how they're phishing them in business, how they're going to phish the company, how ransomware works.
Yeah.
Tell them something about their home life, something that they can enact. Because I always feel like if someone can take just one thing home and that'll make their wife, husband, kids safer, they tend to more buy into that.
Absolutely, and I felt a huge amount of success in our security awareness training this year when I had one person, an executive actually, came back to me and said, "Hey, that phishing It was actually about phishing, security awareness on phishing. I said, that was really effective. I want my kids and my wife to see that. How can we do that? How can I have them replay that function ethically, because it was a licensed product, and not break any rules? And I said, well, here's how we could do it. And I showed them how to do it, and they played it for their family and allowed their family to get some knowledge of what was going on. So I knew it was effective when I have somebody coming back saying, hey, I want that to happen. But you're absolutely right. So another method that I look at, so you've got 2 business, 1 personal. One of the methods I look at, and I do this whenever I'm giving presentations and speeches as well, is a hook, book, look, and took. Okay, so first of all,
look, and took.
Right. So in order to capture the person's attention, we need to hook them with a nice, common sense, applicable story right at the front. Then let's take a look at the book. In my case, this information security policy. So the look in the book, the hook, book, look, and took. So then we take that information security policy and say, okay, here's our policy on it. Now let's take a deeper dive and how does that apply to you in your business role? So let's go down that next level. And then I have that took part, which is, so what? So what does all that stuff mean? Well, here's how it applies to you, James, and what you need to do in your business unit, in your life, to make this an effective training session. So hook, book, look, and took.
I like that. Hook, book, look, and took. That's the title of the podcast.
There you go.
Hook, book, took, and look.
Hook, book,
I wonder
look,
how many.
and took.
That's good. That's hook, book, look, and took. That's essentially okay with a different first letter.
There you go.
That's nice. That's nice. We talk about people, and it seems like technology for phishing at one point caught up.
Mm-hmm.
And at one point we
Yeah.
were actually mitigating it.
Yes.
And now that's not the case anymore. It feels like the hackers figured out what specific technology is doing, and now they've found a way to beat it.
Right. So, James, I was on another podcast the other day. I cheated on you, but it was only a 15-minute podcast.
Yeah, those are boring.
Yeah, but the question was posed to me. So you got it. They were boring. Okay. So, but the question was posed to me is how can AI or something to the effect of how can AI defeat phishing? And my answer was probably not what they were looking for, because they were really looking for the answer of how can AI defeat phishing or any other type of security function. My answer was it can't. It can combat phishing. So you just talked about it. Phishing hit a plateau for a while, and now it's on the rise again. It's because the people that are creating the attack have learned how to defeat the AI, and now they're creating new vectors of the attack.
But it's not real AI. A lot of the stuff that's out there today is machine learning.
Right.
And so machine learning is very limited. Right. Machine learning is very limited. And I feel like that also is one of those challenges of there's AI, there's machine learning. Now, machine learning is a function of AI. Well, AI is a real technology. It's a buzzword because people misuse it.
That's exactly right.
It was really interesting. I met with a company out of the Czech Republic that were here on a delegation fly-in, a Czech embassy delegation fly-in. They came to Atlanta and we hosted them. And one of the guys there was a co-founder of a company that all they do is AI.
Right.
And we were in a room with 20 cybersecurity vendors on a round table.
Okay.
And I asked him, I go, could you explain to us once and for all, what's the difference between machine learning and AI? And he gave the great example. He go, machine learning is a part of AI. Mm-hmm. But it's a very, very slow, limited piece of AI. He goes, artificial intelligence is full independent thinking. Mm-hmm. Deep learning is the ultimate goal. And machine learning is those little bits and bytes of user and machine behavior and adapting that to that action. And so I feel like ever since he explained it that way, I think I've gotten away from the buzzword or non-buzzword. A lot of companies use AI. If someone puts me AI/ML, that'll go to my spam.
Right.
It's my spam filter.
It just goes straight there, right?
It goes straight to spam. I don't want to see it. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to read it. Don't waste my time.
Right.
Because you can't, if machine learning is part of AI, then you can't have both. You either have machine learning or you have AI.
Okay.
But one can't go with the other.
So you're saying
one's full speed.
ML can't feed AI then? Or should it feed AI?
I don't think ML can feed AI because ML is just so slow. And again, it's machine learning. It's the machine learning your behavior.
Right.
Artificial intelligence is physically doing the thinking for you.
Right. And the other factor with machine learning is typically it's that machine or that cluster.
Right.
You get it off of that machine and that cluster, and you have to allow it to learn all over again.
Correct.
You can't really pick it up and transport it.
Transport
Whereas
it
AI would be something that you can transport somewhere to some degree.
So I agree with your answer in the fact that AI can't beat phishing.
Right.
Humans have to beat phishing.
That's right. Because we're the ultimate AI, right?
For now.
For now.
Until we get like little like tubes coming out of our brains going bzzz.
I think we're following the model of Star Trek ever since '65, and we've got the tricorders in the medical industry already. We've got the cell phones that actually chirp like a communicator. So we're headed towards the Borg.
We are
AI.
We are, but I feel like a part of it is in technology. A lot of times, especially in cyber, we tend to look at across different technologies.
Yeah.
And see how we can apply them. And I think like in the fourth, kind of going back to the fourth quarter and really, we kind of started talking phishing, but really just beyond that, the human element is there's no technology that's going to replace a human.
We can agree on that.
Human capital is going to be involved no matter what happens to the economy.
Right.
What you digitalize, what you do in robotics, it doesn't matter. There's still going to be a human somewhere.
Right. I completely agree. I've had the question posed to me before in more political debates of what do you do when there's no jobs left? And I've always said that humans have always adapted and created new jobs and new work.
Right.
When something's been removed from the opportunity space, we create new things. I mean, this whole cyber world is new jobs that have been created, right? So we're going to continue to create the new jobs. So the human will always be there. I think we can agree on that.
And so you obviously heard that we're going to talk about this at our live podcast. So like, again, I said, if you're in Dallas, join us live. If you're a CISO and you want to be part of our roundtable, you're going to want for the next part. But I'm going to switch off to the podcast I did with Patrick Benoit recently, where as he entered the BISO role at CBRE, we started talking about vendor client third-party risk management. And the next about 9 minutes of the podcast are just around that. So let's kick it off to Patrick and myself talking about vendor client management, and Patrick laying down some wisdom that's so important for CISOs, BISOs, and cybersecurity practitioners, and even those cybersecurity vendors who want to get an idea of vendor client management and relationship. Patrick, click. So that kind of takes me into that whole vendor client management and cybersecurity. A lot of times, this morning I was having coffee with a very good friend of mine who runs a penetration testing company. And I won't give him the cheap plug because I'm going to talk about stuff that we discussed, and I don't want to put him out there. I don't want his customers to know that we're talking about that. And so, we were talking about how everyone's always chasing the CISO in the vendor world. I got to get time with the CISO. And it feels like the BISO role is almost coming to also kind of alleviate that a little bit from a cybersecurity vendor place, or is that really not the case?
To some degree. If you look at the entire vendor universe at a company, the CISO and his executives that own engineering and ops and GRC will probably have more direct play with vendors that provide those kinds of services to the company. The BISO might come in more in terms of, I'll just, for lack of a better term, call them pass-through type services. Or, we have a product that is used specifically to support client services or client demand. In those cases, yeah, the BISO is going to be much more directly involved because the procurement is actually happening at the business level. It's not happening at the GCSO or the security officer level. So that's where the BISO gets involved with the vendor assurance, and it's a interesting role in that it's purely trying to encourage and help ensure that we have a super strong third-party assurance program. There is no, pure play decision making or approval or owning budget or anything like that. It's purely this encouragement kind of a role.
Do you feel like it's more of an auditing, almost internal, external auditing of different partners, but also kind of teaming up with sales, marketing, and business ops to really kind of build that security posture that everyone is so concerned about today?
Yeah, I think it has less to do with auditing. And I mean, that still remains with our compliance folks and with the internal audit folks and so forth, and with the third-party assurance team and procurement to, make sure that they're checking the boxes. But, I'm looking more for, are there ways that we can strengthen that program and have a better story to tell with respect to how strong our third-party assurance is, so that I can turn to the client with our customer reps and account reps and say, look, here's what we're doing to protect you even from the vendor possibilities, which we all admittedly know that there's the worry, because so many of the recent issues have come through third parties.
Right, and that seems to be kind of where I see the BISO role kind of, you were right at the very beginning of the podcast. You talked about how the BISO role was predominantly in financial companies, and that simply they have so many vendors, so much supply chain, and they sell so much of their services that it made sense to have a BISO role. But now we're really seeing it spread across the rest of the enterprise, the rest of the verticals, or a lot of the other industries. It's the role's kind of inventing itself. Where is the role today based on what you're seeing in the market? That's the first part of the question. Then the follow-up to that would be, how is this role going to develop? And is it going to be a singular role, a team role? And are we going to end up seeing kind of the evolution of the end of sales engineers and the introduction of BISOs?
Yeah, so it is an evolving role. I'd say this kind of nuanced view of spreading out into sales and into product strategy is something that I don't think has been latched onto yet by more than maybe some of the forward-thinking companies. And that's not that anybody else hasn't thought of it or anything, but nobody else has been willing to invest to do it. So I frankly have not seen it in this kind of role where it's salesy, very salesy, and strategy wise. So whether it's true or not, I've been told that I was a unicorn because I'm a sales guy that knows security and knows tech. And everything that I do with the client and with the vendor and with the internal customers, there's a sales aspect to it. I don't have a widget that I can sell. So I have to sell our story. I have to sell, our posture and security. And I think that's a place that we're maturing to. But from a purely kind of industry selfish point of view, I don't think the whether it be the CISO or security executives in general will have a strong play to have a big seat at the table, the adult table, really, until we start to show that we're highly supportive, not just supportive, but highly integrated into the business, and that we're helping to drive revenue. Now, you can call that a marketing play if you want, but the fact is, if I can somehow figure out someday how to get $1 to show up on that big circle of in the all hands that says quarterly revenue, and it says $1 security office, that changes the whole perception of the security office at that point. It makes the team be looked at differently, their approach differently, because now, wow, they generated some revenue. And it gives the leaders of security a better position to have discussions about taking that seat at the big table.
So in a traditional BISO role, do you see BISOs consistently reporting to the CISO, or do you see them kind of being
BISO role? Yeah. Yeah,
do you see that maybe changing in the future? Do you see it going to maybe the chief revenue officer or the COO or along some of the other business units?
I think it, for at least the conceivable future, the near term, it's going to remain under the CISO because there's still a certain level of mystery surrounding security, and everybody looks at it like, and especially when we start using the term cyber in front of it, because everybody thinks that's mysterious and cool and everything else. So I think for the foreseeable future, it will remain under the CISO, but having a dotted line to the business executives is critical. Long term, could that change, flip over a little bit, and eventually become the business executives, the business CTO or the business COO? Business line owns the BISO role and it's dotted line back to the CISO? Yeah, it could flip. I don't know that it will in my career, but it could flip.
It's interesting. I mean, you're still young, Pat. You're nowhere near retirement, so your career is still years ahead of you, buddy. This could flip while you're still around.
It's possible. It's possible. But I mean, I'm older than I look, though. So
I won't ask
I'm
you your
104, James. I'm 104. I just look really good.
You're 104 and you look really good. You must be German. I'm joking.
Yeah, there is some of that in there, but yeah.
Yeah, it's always interesting whenever I travel. It seems like there's specific countries where you can't tell how old people are.
Yeah.
They all just look pretty much. Everyone looks like they're in their 30s. Even a 12-year-old looks like in his 30s. There's a good and a bad to that.
Well, I can't take credit for that. That's just, good genes, I guess.
We're going to stay with Patrick here for a minute and talk slightly about what experience level is needed for the BISO role. We know that there is a shortage of cybersecurity professionals in the marketplace, but the BISO role requires a unicorn type of talent from cybersecurity practitioners. And Patrick here shares a little bit about his experience and what do you really need if you want to go down the road of becoming a BISO. So we'll switch off to that part of our conversation, and then we're going to come back with something really, really great. So don't go away. We're going to be right back after this discussion with Patrick about the experience for a BISO. What level of experience would be ideal for a BISO to be successful in his role? Is there kind of that perfect job description outside of being an outgoing, well-spoken, intelligent guy like you are? What does it take to be a BISO?
I'll get your check in the mail. It's interesting because people have said that combining those skills is kind of a unicorn ask. Maybe it is. What I have found is a lot of times when you say, here's a BISO role, who would be interested? Who are you going to get that are going to submit applications? A big chunk of those people are going to be GRC people that have just, they've done the client security stuff forever and ever and ever, and they understand the client security stuff. That's a pure play traditional BISO. So now
is that the right role? Because I'm going to stop you there for a second, because I think GRC, compliance is the complete opposite of security.
Exactly. And so that's not the right role, and that's the point. You need somebody that has balance and has breadth, because if you want to reduce the noise to the rest of the company, you have to be able to speak, intelligibly on a number of topics. You have to be able to answer questions that would normally be sent off to the infrastructure team at a high level without getting into the weeds. You need to be able to answer those questions yourself without having to turn to them. So it's that combination of deep technical background across, infrastructure and security and application development and project management and all that kind of stuff. But then it's also that you have customer facing experience where you have had to sit in front of a customer possibly to make a living, that you're selling your Service selling is different than widget selling, as we know. So if you don't have service or consultative selling background, it's going to be difficult for you. Not impossible, but it'll be difficult.
Is there the right mix? So let me rephrase the question, because I want to go in a bit of a different direction though. Is, when you talk, do you look at this role from within? Do you want to bring the outside voice that's kind of going to bring a fresh outlook into this role? Do you see this as becoming something that we're going to, in 2020, we'll see this kind of be a trend, and then by 2021, it's a standard expectation role somewhere?
I think like all roles, it may evolve that way. That's a maturity evolution kind of thing. I would never, ever, ever discount looking at people inside the company. I said this many, many, many years ago, and I won't say how many because that'll give away my age other than 104. Years ago that I had a discussion with a leader of mine, and I said, look, you're going outside looking for candidates who can put anything they want on that resume. And other than them not being able to answer the questions, you can't validate that. But you've got somebody in-house that you already know what they're capable of. Why would you ever, bring in an outside person if there's an inside person that can do it, other than the pure choice of, I need new ideas. I need a different way of thinking.
Which kind of takes this whole BISO role, because the BISO role is really a whole new way of thinking about security, right? It's taking the package that the CISO, compliance, legal, IT, and everyone else builds, and you're really packaging it up so that when you're talking to internal, external clients, partners, and others, that you're really giving them a very good feeling about security and about doing business with the company and so forth. Is it really going to be that outlook, like that outside of the box kind of feel to it?
Well, I mean, it should, but I'll temper the answer by saying that, again, most companies still view BISO as that very traditional linear role. So, what we're doing and what I've been proposing is still a little bit outside the box, just on the surface. But you kind of gave a great analogy there. What if the person, instead of saying we're trying to sell this feeling, instead we're saying, look, we're taking this package of our security for our company, for the data, for privacy, for how we deal with legal and all these kinds of things. How do we deal with insider threat? Everything you can think of with respect to security, and that in one big bundle is a product. So now, or a service, however you want to look at it. But now we have to take that and we have to develop marketing materials sufficient to explain that to customers. And we have to then go out and sell that to customers. Now, the end result is not a direct, purchase order that says we're going to buy that from you. But, in a sense it is. Because if I sell that product as the add-on to what the core product is they're selling, and they buy that, then haven't we just done the same thing as any salesperson does?
And that's a really, really good point, which is, do you really compensate and measure your CISOs? We spoke about part of the KPIs being, measuring not only their value, but how much money they save the company. Do you really start kind of compensating them based on the amount of business they win? And is there a real way to measure that? Because we all know sales guys, they say, he helped, but listen, it was all me.
Right. And so I think that's where there's an opportunity for the BISO role to kind of evolve early, is the CISO. If the BISO remains under the CISO, now the CISO can turn and say, internally, here's our security posture, and we have all the kind of traditional metrics that we use to look at how we're securing and protecting the environment, which has always been very hard for boards to understand. But if he can then also say through the BISO, we were involved in the closing of X number of millions or hundreds of millions of dollars worth of deal because we have this product called our security posture that the customers are buying, that they're scrambling to buy. So now can you measure that by saying, what deals did you contribute to? It's a soft contribution, but it's still a contribution. And then can you take that and use that as a later, could you use it as a quota? Could you turn to the BISO and say, you have an obligation to be involved in X number of dollars worth of deals? And obviously you have to define what involved means, but can that become a quota? Could you pay the BISO some bonus or commission based on that? Those are all things that I think are possible and certainly worth thinking about.
As you kind of develop your role and you're in this new place and you don't really have a lot of places to draw from, what are some of the ways you're really kind of evolving the BISO role, and what are some of the lessons you're learning along the way for it?
Yeah. So, I think the biggest lessons, other than so the first thing is that part of the role of the BISO is that traditional role, which is to apply some sort of process rigor around the logistical aspect of dealing with the client. Here comes a questionnaire. We got to answer the answers, get the question back out. Here comes an agreement. Read the agreement, make sure it's okay, help with MSAs, SOW, all that stuff. That's very logistical. And I think there's a support function within the BISO team that helps fulfill some of that administrative stuff, just like you have sales support. I think the other lesson, though, is we have to stop thinking in terms of pure play technology and pure play security roles and how we just make those better, and start taking lessons from more mature roles like the sales organization. And that's why when I start talking about a BISO being over in the sales side, I'm looking for ways to emulate the best part of the sales organization and become a member of their team and sit on their team when they go out to a client, a customer. And you have that flip side on the product side. I'm looking for the best ways to emulate product owners and product development managers that are, driving roadmap strategy for products. And how do I bring any of those kinds of thoughts and ideas into the BISO role and apply it to security?
And so now the next two parts that are going to play back to back, folks, we're going to start off with Mark and finish with Patrick, where Mark and I discuss a lot of things around the CISO community and really our main topic, which is the CISO incident response plan for their career, which is the topic of our CISO roundtable in Dallas on February 5th. That's a closed CyberHub Engage event. You can apply over the weekend. We still have a few spots remaining, so you can do that. Make sure you go to cyberhubengage.com or send me a message on LinkedIn, and I'll make sure to get your invitation out and your seat assigned. Mark and I are going to discuss this, and then Patrick and I talk about the BISO role, and we talk a little bit more about the Dallas Roundtable and where you can join us. And so give this a listen, and then we're going to be right back after that with a special announcement and the end of this week's CISO Talk.
See, again, I think, and again, I'm probably going to anger some people, but why not? That's what we're here for, right?
It's Tuesday.
So it's Tuesday, it's Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I'll anger people any day of the week. I don't care. But I'm going back to leadership. It's a failure of CISOs. And we're here to talk about CISOs, and we're here to strengthen and better CISOs. That's the purpose of what we're talking about here in this podcast. So it's a failure of CISOs when your people, not everybody, but when your people, when your job descriptions become a revolving door, it's a failure for you to hire people who have a history of that. It's a failure of you to not inspire your people to a higher vision that will lead them to stay with you and continue to work the efforts that you're working, it is a difficult position to constantly have to retrain people coming in as a CISO. So if you've got the revolving door going on, if you've got if you have the revolving door going on, do some deep analysis as to why. Is it you? Is it your company? Is it what your company's paying? Is it how you're hiring the people that you're looking for? Because there's good people out there that will stay. I mean, I've been in my position for 5 years. I've got people on my team that have been on the team for 3 years. And part of the reason is because we work to cast a vision that we're trying to do something for our customers that they are either unable to do or incapable of doing. And I don't mean incapable from an incompetent perspective, meaning they're an SMB of some sort, or they're a business, a larger business in many cases, that has turned to us as their consultants, as their security team, to do the work that they know that needs to get done to protect their systems, whether that's PCI, HIPAA, or even federal type of systems with FedRAMP or FISMA. They're actually looking to us to secure those. And so I convey that message to our team. I provide purpose for the job, for the people that work that job. Now, does that work for everybody? No. But I think if you've got a revolving door, you need to take a look and really analyze why. And as a CISO, you need to correct that. Otherwise, you're constantly going to be in that problem. And it's a difference between leadership and management. It really is. And I've said it a number of times here, I'm going to keep saying it, CISOs need to lead, not manage. And it is just like I preach common sense security, I'm preaching leadership versus management. It is important that we lead and we be out there, and we are not driving things down people's throats, but we're guiding them to the water. Now, we can't make them drink, but at least we can guide them and show them where the water is so that they can take that drink.
I feel like that's such an important point, and I want to end this episode on that high note.
Okay.
Because I feel like that's such a good high note. I don't know that I want to go into anything else. CISOs should lead and not manage.
Right.
I think if more people paid attention to that, the state of our industry might be a little bit better. Although, I mean, I said I was going to end, but I'm not. We'll take 5 more minutes because it's something I'm really passionate about. I've spoken about it. You know, people that are going to listen to this episode, they're listening to it a month down the road. But a month ago, for you listeners, Capital One fired their CISO for, I think, a job well done in responding to an incident.
Right.
And that frustrates the living Jesus out of me. Like, it just does. It's if you're a CISO and you watched a Capital One response, I'm not talking about the people that Monday morning quarterback that situation on LinkedIn.
You and I have talked about it 3 different times.
Right.
Once on the podcast and
twice
a couple of times. Right.
A couple of times just privately.
Right.
I think one time at the CyberHub Summit when we were having our fireside chat. You discovered, you handled.
You got the right people involved with law enforcement absolutely quickly.
You did everything by the book.
Yep. You still paid the price. So that leads me to believe there's no reason for anyone to want to be a CISO. It's not an easy job.
They reduced that incentive. Right. Corporate, the CEOs and the boards are taking away the incentive for anyone to want to be CISO without them having to pay the bejesus for that CISO because they know. Right. I mean, we had on our fireside chat Graham Payne, the former CIO for
3
Equifax.
of us were sitting right up there. Mm-hmm.
And he was talking about the price that he paid.
Right.
Post breach.
Right. I know that. So I wake up. You know, there's these cartoons out there that show the CTO is sleeping, the CFO is sleeping, and we know that that's not exactly true. But they show the empty bed for the CISO, right? You know, it's funny, but there's a lot of truth to that because I'm a pretty calm and I'm a pretty confident guy
You're a chill
about
dude.
my job, and I know that if something happens, probably going to be able to be a consultant. I can be able to get another job at some point. But reality is, I go to bed every night and wondering if I'm going to wake up in the morning and find Databank in the news, or find one of our customers in the news because there was a breach within the systems or our facility or something. And knowing that in order, the way that most companies react, in order for something, there's rectification of some sort, there's a head that's got to roll somewhere. That's just the way it works. Now, granted, we don't know all the inside details of Cap One. There may be things we don't know.
Right.
We always have to give that as a possibility. But reality is that team was led and not managed, and they were led well. They knew how to react to the situation, which tells me as a CISO, when I wake up in the morning and there's a breach, doesn't matter how good I am and what I've done right.
Right. Should I even invest time in my incident response?
That I might as well walk into my CEO's office or my CTO's office and say, I'm going to help you for the next 6 months. You got 6 months notice. Let's just agree to disagree right now.
Here's my letter of resignation.
And I'm going to help you get through the next 6 months, and make sure that the law enforcement and everybody's in place and there's some continuity, but you might as well start looking for somebody now because this is an unrecoverable situation. I have my own personal incident response plan that's ready in the event that happens. How many CISOs out there have their own personal incident response plan that says, if you wake up tomorrow morning, there's a breach of your data or in your facility or your environment, says what do you personally
do? Because you got to protect your brand.
That's right.
So first of all, you call me.
There you go. I'll call James.
We'll get your story out there. I think I reached out to Michael
I don't think it
times.
would happen in this facility, but maybe down there
it can happen at our
your
studio.
Office. There you go.
We can break out a bourbon. There's bourbon behind you.
There you go.
And we can have a conversation about it. But
reality is
they take away that incentive.
Right.
I mean, I can tell you I was offered a CISO position. Mm-hmm. And I turned it down because I see no incentive in taking that position.
Right.
None. Yeah, it's great to have the title.
But when you wake up every morning wondering what's going to happen, and let me be clear of something so that there's no question, okay? Databank hasn't told me that if you wake up one morning that this is what has to happen. I'm just telling you from my own perspective, that's the way CISOs. That's what happens to CISOs.
You got to be willing to have the cyanide pill in your mouth. You're a spy if you're a CISO.
That's right.
And if you get caught, you got to be willing to bite off that tooth with the cyanide pill in it and be ready to sacrifice yourself, because if you don't do it, they're going to execute you.
Somebody's going to go down.
Right.
That's the way it works. And to be fair, to Databank, I said I have my own incident response plan in place, and that's what would exist. I actually work for a wonderful company. I mean, and I'm not just blowing smoke. I mean, how many CISOs have been in their position for 5 years?
Not many.
And so they've put up with my, hey, we've got risks here and there, and we need to address those kinds of things. They've put up with my, you're not giving me enough money for my budget. You're not giving me enough money for my people. Instead of tossing me out the door, they've said, hey, let's work through these things. So I do work for a wonderful company. Would they accept my resignation? I don't know, but that's part of my incident response plan. And every CISO should have their incident response plan in place, and they should have their finances in order, and they should have everything in their life in order to take 6 months off. And find that new job.
Well, I can tell you that as someone who, I want to change the conversation around the role of a CISO post breach. I feel like that's.
Oh, absolutely.
I have the pleasure tomorrow, before I come here for the grand opening, to speak in front of about 18 CISOs from the North Fulton region.
Yeah.
CEOs at a lunch and learn that's hosted by a company that invited me to be their keynote speaker to talk about cybersecurity across the enterprise.
Nice.
And that is literally 2 of my slides talk about empowering your CISO and understanding that, it's.
But it goes back to what we wanted to end this thing on: it's leadership versus management. And your leader CISOs are going to be able to lead through these situations, or at least do their best to do so. They're planning for what if and they're helping guide the various other teams through that. Managers typically would just throw it up in the air and either deny it or fight it in a negative sense.
Or
I mean,
blame
literally
someone on their
blame.
team.
Well, that's what I'm talking about when I say fight it. Blame somebody else's fault, not yours, kind of thing. When leaders take responsibility for things, leaders continue. They have plans for retirements. They have plans for their own their own exit plans and so on and so forth. And that's the kind of, we want to change the discussion about CISOs. That's the kind of conversations we need to have, is let's teach our CISOs to be leaders rather than managers.
That's a great topic for our next roundtable.
All right. Let's do it.
Let's do it. Well, Mark, thanks for being here so much. Thank you for hosting the roundtable with me today. I'm
Absolutely.
so excited for it.
About another hour or so, we'll have a whole bunch of CISOs here. We could teach them.
Half an hour.
Half an hour. We could teach them how to handle budgets, and we could teach them how to be leaders rather than managers.
And I think we can form a very interesting working group.
Absolutely.
Thanks so much for being here, Mark. Thank you for listening. Thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe, follow, like us. Check out our amazing supporters and sponsors of this podcast who, without their financial support, we wouldn't be able to continue to work for free like we did for the first year of our existence, bringing you the content that you've grown accustomed to. Thank you so much for Mark. Thank you so much for you, our dear listeners. We'll be back with more next week. Until then, enjoy your Saturday. You bring up such an awesome point. I mean, that is so true. Today, as a CISO, your best chance of advancement is maybe becoming a CIO at one point. I mean, or Michael Johnson's case at Capital One, cybersecurity advisor. I mean, yeah. I'm not going to get into that today. I promised myself I wasn't going to do it to myself today. I wasn't going to, but it feels like, there's downsides to being a CISO, and like the BISO may not have a lot of downside. I mean, we may end up seeing kind of the BISO being the cockroach of the cyber world that survives all the nuclear options and just always ends up coming back and just multiplying and kind of helping recover the ecosystem.
Yeah. Well, think about this. I mean, this is the way I think about it. So there's nothing magic here, but I'm fortunate. I've had a software development and an infrastructure background. So I've been on the technology side a lot of years. So, and now I'm in security. I love security. So what if though, for whatever reason, I decided I want to go back to technology? I won't say most, that's probably a bad thing. There are a lot of CISOs out there that have been in security their entire life. And so if they went to go apply for a CIO role, it might be hard for them to get there. But let's look at a BISO. If you take the model I've proposed, and the BISO now has been in the business, they've been on the sales side, they've been in the product strategy side, they have to be able to talk infrastructure, they have to be able to talk applications, they're aware of everything innovative that the company's been doing over the tenure as a BISO, and they know security. Now they want to turn around and go be a CIO someplace. I think it's much better groundwork laid than I've been in security my entire life, and now I want to try and switch over. Just my opinion.
I like your opinion. I don't always like agreeing with people I have on the show. I think it makes for a boring show. But I feel like this was a really
$3 to get you a coffee at Starbucks, right?
Well,
for you.
When we're so to kind of wrap up, because we're almost out of time, and I want to respect your time because I know you're very, very, very busy as a BISO, and you've got a ton on your plate. So I appreciate you for taking the time. But I also want to mention on February 5th we'll be in Dallas for a CISO BISO roundtable with Databank. Mark Houpt and I are going to take what we've done in Atlanta a few times, bring it out to your neck of the woods. We'd love for you to be part of our event, Patrick. So be there.
Oh, I'd love to do that. Yeah, love to do that.
We're very excited about it. Our last group in Atlanta had about 20 CISOs in the room, and we just were all over budgeting and kind of building our security program and some of our challenges with the board. And Mark brought up a great kind of topic, which I think we'll lead off with in Dallas, which is everyone has an incident response plan for their organization, but do you have one for your career? What happens when you wake up in the morning and you get the phone call in the middle of the night? I don't want to do the dreaded 3 a.m. cliche phone call that says we have a situation. Obviously, you've got a plan for your business unit and responding to that incident. But what about you for yourself? And I felt like a lot of people who are in security haven't really thought that through. We live on the edge of kind of, that skyscraper. You see those people walking those high beams, and we feel like we're solid. But man, one slip up, your fault or not, right? And you could be gone. And do you have a plan when that happens?
Yeah, and that's a great topic. And I mean, I'm a big believer in always keeping your network active and always, knowing, looking ahead to where you're responsible for your own career. I tell everybody that everything is about marketing. It's got to have some aspect of marketing in it. So I have marketing objectives for a BISO program. How do I socialize and market the program? And you need to do that with yourself too. I forget who was I listening to a podcast? I think Jordan Harbinger, and he said on his podcast, which I think is just a wonderful thing to think about: make sure you dig the well before you need to drink the water.
Yep.
So getting thirsty and then trying to dig the well is a little too late. So,
Patrick, thank you so much for coming on the show again. I really appreciate your time. For everyone listening, Patrick Benoit, BISO at CBRE, kind of defining the role. When we'll be in Dallas in February, I'll have him back on. We'll do a 3-month update if you'll come back on the show, Pat.
Absolutely, love to.
And that's it for today's episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. Have a great rest of your weekend. Make sure you subscribe, give us 5 stars, comment, and make sure you submit question. Go to our website, cyberhubengage.com, where you can see the list of our guests and submit questions to those guests that we will ask on the show. So thank you so much for tuning in, Pat. Thanks again. Everyone have a great rest of your Saturday. Shabbat Shalom. We'll be back with more next week. Thank you so much for listening. And this is kind of a mashup. We have so much great content coming your way here going forward. We've got some great guests coming on the podcast here in the next few months as we hit the road to RSA starting on Monday, where we are going to be 3 short weeks from being in San Francisco and spending time and seeing all of your pretty faces and fun t-shirts. We're going to have a lot of great stuff going on at RSA. Can't wait to see you guys there. Thank you so much for listening to this Saturday special. Thank you so much for your support. Make sure you subscribe, give us 5 stars. Next week, we'll have some of the highlights from our live podcast, and we'll have a very special episode coming with 2 brand new CISOs that are going to be joining the CyberHub Engage CISO Talk family. And our list for RSA, if you are going to be at RSA and you're a security practitioner and you want to have a conversation, reach out to us at cyberhubengage.com and we will get you booked. We have very limited time slots, and we're going to be filming with one of our partners right outside of Moscone, which means you don't have to go through the floor to be able to talk to us. That's it for this week's episode. Thanks so much for tuning in. Thanks so much for listening. Make sure you subscribe, give us 5 stars, follow us on all your favorite social media channels. My name is James Azar. Thanks so much for tuning in. Enjoy your weekend. Shabbat Shalom, and we'll be back with more.